Hey historians, Miss Blackman here, and today we are going to talk about the Articles of Confederation. And you might be thinking, yeah, I think I know a little bit about that. Wasn't that thing that didn't work out? Well, you would be right. All right, so your question for today, which document established the first government of the United States? I'll give you just a second to look over that and then decide. You can just say your answer to yourself. Okay, if you chose C, the Articles of Confederation, you are right. All right, so a lot of people are inclined to choose A, the Mayflower Compact. That doesn't really work because the Mayflower Compact was not the first government of the United States, but it was the first government of northeastern North America. If you said the Declaration of Independence, yeah, that's an important document, but basically it's just our breakup letter with Britain. It's not a government of any form. So the Articles of Confederation is what established the law of the land, so that's going to be the first government of the United States. And the United States Constitution is what replaces the Articles of Confederation because, as we learn in this lesson, they don't work. Okay, so the Articles of Confederation were drafted in 1777, just a year after the Declaration of Independence was signed, and they go into effect in 1781. That's when they're adopted. They were written by the Second Continental Congress. They established the first independent government of the United States of America. And basically, this forms a league of friendship between the 13 colonies. So, states are just friends. There's not really one big power over them. They kind of do what they want to do, as we'll see. And this is because the colonies were afraid of a strong central government because of their experience with England. They didn't want somebody taxing them or telling them what to do, that sort of thing. And they created a unicameral Congress. Okay, so that means unicameral Congress just means a one-chamber Congress, and that's the only branch of government there was. There wasn't a legislative and there wasn't an executive. There's just one branch of government under the Articles of Confederation, and that is a unicameral Congress, meaning just one house in the Congress, not two like we have today, just one. Okay, so let's take a look at what America looked like. So we kind of know what the Articles of Confederation had to deal with. Remember, the Articles of Confederation went into effect in 1781. This is actually before we win the American Revolution. We didn't win the American Revolution until 1783, and that's when the Treaty of Paris of 1783 was written and ended the American Revolution. All right, so here is 1775. Do I have a mouse? Where's my mouse? All right, pre-war boundary 1775. You can see the gold right here is all of the area that Britain owned, and then the French own this little area down here, and then you've got Spain owning much of the rest of North America, and they have South America too. And Russians own some stuff up here, and yeah, so that's pretty much it. And then 1783, after the colonies win the revolution, this becomes the United States, this red area right here. So we have expanded a lot. You've got the 13 colonies right here, but now you have all this other territory that's east of the Mississippi River to deal with. And then this area right here, the gold, is British. So they have Canada during that point in time. And then this purplish right here is still Spain. And then these are some disputed territories, and yeah. So I hope that makes sense. So now we have to deal with all of this area right here. And that's what the Articles of Confederation does. So at first, several of the original colonies, which are now the 13 states during this point in time, start claiming this land, this new land that they have, which is east of the Mississippi River. So they start claiming that region, but they eventually have to give it up because they have to pay their state Revolutionary War debts. So they all have debts, so they give up that land. Congress hopes to sell this land so that way they can settle their debt from the war, because remember, war is really expensive, so of course they're going to have debt. And they can finance a new government. The Articles of Confederation really deals with this land. And the first way that they deal with this is they pass the Land Ordinance of 1785. And that divides this land into townships. And so they make money off of selling it. And a really cool thing is that they set aside the 16th plot for public education. Okay, so the 16th plot in each township was set aside so that way they could establish a school there later. And the Northwest Ordinance is the other way that the Articles of Confederation deal with this land. And so the new nation is very money poor, but very land rich. So the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 is the process by which they established statehood. And this would be the process that's used later on as the United States expands all the way to the Pacific. The Northwest Ordinance deals with the land that is north and west of the Ohio River. This is called the Northwest Territory right here. And this is the first territory created outside the original 13. This was passed in 1787, and this law established a method by which territories would be admitted to the Union. And a really cool thing that they decided to do, well, you don't really need slavery there, so they decided to ban that in those regions. So this sets a boundary, though, making the Ohio River the boundary between free and slave regions. To establish order, the federal Congress appoints a governor, secretary, and 3 judges to preside over the region. Okay, so the Northwest Ordinance makes it possible for a territory to become a state. Now, there's a couple qualifications that you have to have, and that's you have to have a certain number of people living there. So once a territory reached a population of 5,000 free male adults, it could elect its own assembly. And then the next step would be to apply for full statehood once the population reached 60,000 free inhabitants. Ohio was the first state to enter the Union under this system. All right, so 2 very good things that the Articles of Confederation did was the Land Ordinance of 1785 and the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. So those are 2 things that they did, and that's dealing with the territory, the new territory that the United States has. So the federal government was established by the Articles of Confederation. Like we said, they consisted just of a Congress. That's it. Each state had 1 vote, regardless of the number of delegates representing each state. And 9 of the 13 state votes were required for laws to be passed. So 9 of the 13 states had to agree, and then a law could be passed. There was no judicial or executive branch to enforce Congress's laws. So, like we said, the new United States is pretty poor, and there's no taxes. The government doesn't have that power. And so there's no taxes, there's no government money. All the government could do was simply ask the states for money, and they could accept state donations. But, I mean, obviously the states aren't going to donate very much if they don't have to. And so the U.S. government and individual states were very heavily in debt from the Revolutionary War, and there was little money coming into the federal government. So this lack of taxation power from Congress is a huge weakness of the Articles of Confederation, and it left the nation dangerously close to failure at the very beginning. And states have too much power. They're operating like individual entities, and they're actually in direct competition with one another. So it's pretty crazy. And they all have a different form of currency. Could you imagine trying to travel from state to state and they all take different types of money? It's insane. So it was a big problem. Changes had to be made, but you had to have all 13 states agree to make any changes to the Articles of Confederation. Like we said, 9 out of 13 had to vote to add something, but to make a change, to alter something, you had to have a unanimous agreement. And so this was going to be very, very hard to do. But Shays Rebellion happens, and people decide that this is the last straw, and something has to be done. 1786 to 87, economic issues are arising. Many ex-soldiers who fought in the war are losing their farms because they don't have any money and they can't pay the taxes to their states. Remember, states are still taxing. It's just the Congress can't tax. And so Daniel Shays, who was a ex-soldier from the Revolutionary War, takes a group of armed farmers and he goes after the Massachusetts arsenal. The governor sends in the state militia. The militia defeat the farmers led by Daniel Shays. But what if another thing like this were to happen? What if a larger scale rebellion were to take place? And so, as a result, George Washington decides to call for a stronger government. He's not president, but he's got a lot of influence during this point in time. So remember, there's no executive, so we didn't have a president under the Articles of Confederation. So May 1787, George Washington is elected by the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia to head that up, and that's when they start looking into getting a new form of government. They spend the entire summer hashing out what this new government should look like. So stay tuned for that.